The last week of April has featured generally quiet conditions across most of the United States, but that is about to change as we enter the second half of April. Severe storms and more next at the Weather Farm. Welcome to the Weather Farm. As we dive into our Monday forecast, we see an area of low pressure across the UP of Michigan that is bringing rain into Ontario, but on the backside, as that trough begins to dig in from the northern plains, we're seeing snow across the northern tiers of Minnesota into far northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. This system will continue to move towards the east and will become a very potent system later in the week. Across the Ohio Valley and lower central plains, we have warm conditions spreading to the north and east with those southwesterly winds. Temperatures are going to be warming well into the 60s and 70s across the Ohio and Tennessee Valley. And out west, we are generally quiet for our Monday. Temperatures are generally going to be seasonal across most of the lower two-thirds of the United States. Even we're seeing some 50s and 60s making their way up into the far northeast. That warmth is going to be short-lived as that trough continues to move through the Canadian provinces, bringing another shot of colder air for the eastern third of the United States as we get to the middle of the week. Down in far southern Texas, we are still warming into the 90s as well as in the desert southwest. Now, our risk of severe weather for our Monday is generally going to be confined to southern Ohio, southwestern Pennsylvania, and most of West Virginia and far northeastern Kentucky. That is where we have the greatest risk on the severe storm index, and the greatest chance of tornadoes in that 5% area is going to be down around Marietta, Ohio, into West Virginia, even clipping just far extreme southwestern Pennsylvania. The big threat, though, that we're going to see with these line of severe storms that are going to form on our Monday is going to be hail as well as wind. So while the tornado threat is there, we do believe that the greatest event for your Monday is going to be that hail and wind threats. Not to say that tornadoes can't spin up in the right atmosphere. We saw that last week across parts of Indiana and Kentucky as conditions really weren't favorable for tornadoes, but we did see them spin up in a couple of locations. So we'll continue to monitor that for your Monday. Let's put everything into motion. That low pressure moves off to the east. By Monday night, we see those storms developing across Ohio and West Virginia. That low pressure continues to make its way through Ontario into Quebec by the time we get to Wednesday morning. And speaking of Wednesday morning, we are still seeing those northwesterly winds coming across the Great Lakes, but still enough that could produce a few lake effect snow showers, as well as wraparound snow associated with that departing low pressure system. Out across the central plains, we are seeing ridging taking place where that warmth is building all the way up to the Canadian border. It is across parts of Oklahoma into Kansas on Wednesday afternoon that we do have an isolated chance of a severe storm breaking out, as we do have some instability in that area. Not a widespread event, nothing that the Storm Prediction Center has issued a watch for, but it is going to be something that we're going to continue to watch as we move over the next 48 hours. Because in terms of our temperatures on our Wednesday, we see that trough in the eastern third of the United States. That's keeping temperatures down in the 40s and 50s, but behind it, where we see those warm temperatures surging up through Nebraska, temperatures in the mid-80s for your Wednesday. Across the Canadian provinces of Alberta and British Columbia, we're going to start to see some cooler air start to spill down out of British Columbia into Alberta by the time we get to Wednesday evening. That's going to help limit temperatures there in the 30s and 40s, and that's going to drive the potential for a significant weather event by the time we get to Thursday. So let's put everything into motion. We see some potential storms developing across Oklahoma and Missouri on our Wednesday, but look across Montana. This particular model is wanting to trend a significant weather event across Idaho into Montana for our Wednesday night into Thursday. Now, the models are all over the place with this particular system because we have a deepening cutoff low pressure that's going to develop somewhere around California and Nevada on Wednesday night into Thursday. That development is really going to impact what we see across Idaho and Montana. If the system is as slow as this particular model wants to show, we could see significant snow, and we could see snow at all elevations, even down at the base of the mountain ranges. Now, if the other models are the ones that come into play, where it actually moves this through a lot quicker, develops that cutoff low across California and Nevada a lot sooner, then the snowfall amounts across Idaho and Montana are going to be significantly less. So we're going to monitor this area over the next 48 hours. But want to let you know there is the potential for significant weather. But out ahead of it, where we're in that warmer sector of the air across the Dakotas into Minnesota, we are going to see widespread rain and thunderstorms potentially with this particular system. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has gone ahead and highlighted parts of Iowa and northern Missouri and far eastern Nebraska for a level 1 storm risk out of 5. We're going to watch this over the next several days to see if this risk threat intensifies. But for right now, the Storm Prediction Center wants us to keep an eye on that particular area for severe weather for our Thursday. In terms of our rainfall and precipitation across the Dakotas and into Minnesota, where again you get under the right thunderstorm and you get those downpours, you're going to see heavier amounts of rain. But generally, we're going to see around of a quarter of an inch from most of Minnesota into Wisconsin back through the Dakotas. Again, it's going to be really dependent upon the timing of that system and that barrier jet that's moving out of the Canadian provinces through the northern plains. What's that timing as far as how much precipitation we'll see? But our next big story is on Friday, because the Storm Prediction Center has gone ahead and highlighted an area from Texas all the way through the Ohio Valley up into far southern Michigan for the threat of severe weather. We're going to watch this as well, because what we're seeing in some of the modeling data is that in this particular area, we could see CAPE values, that's that measure of instability, in excess of 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. And so if we see that continue to hold in future model runs, and we see already the indication of strong shear aloft in the system, that's going to allow the storms to potentially rotate. But out ahead of it on our Friday, we're going to see warmth surging into lower Michigan. Chicago, you're going to be approaching 80 degrees. Parts of Iowa is going to be near 80 degrees. So there's going to be a lot of warmth, and the dew points are going to be high in this area. So this is, again, why we believe we could see significant storms across this area on our Friday. Let's take a look at our Easter weekend forecast. Those severe storms move through the Ohio Valley Friday night into Saturday. Heavy rain moves into the northeast for our Saturday afternoon. And then on Sunday, we could be talking about an area of severe weather from Texas through Nebraska with another low pressure system. And that's going to make its way up into the northern plains by the time we get to Monday. So we're going to watch for Easter Day. The greatest chance of severe weather is going to be from Kansas, Missouri, down through Texas into Louisiana. But want you to be aware of that potential as you make your Easter plan. And what's driving all of this change? Well, it's the jet stream. And so we see this trough in the system moving across the Canadian provinces of Ontario and Quebec, bringing that snow. But we see that trough digging in behind it. And now we have a trough in the east, and we have a developing trough in the west. And then we have this bulge across the Central Plains. That's an omega blocking pattern. And here's that system as that cutoff low dives out of Idaho down toward California and Nevada by the time we get to Friday morning. That's going to create a lot of energy. Here's the energy associated across the Central Plains with those Friday storms. But as that low, cutoff low, continues to spin across the Four Corners region, it's going to then get bumped out by another ridge that's building behind it. And that's what's going to ignite the severe weather threat for our Easter day across the lower Central Plains, making its way to the Great Lakes by the time we get to Monday. So a very active pattern with temperatures rising and falling across an area in a matter of 48 hours pretty significantly over the next week. In fact, as we get past Easter weekend, we watch that low pressure system continue to develop and spin across Minnesota, bringing rain Monday and Tuesday. Across the Gulf Coast, we see more lines of severe weather popping up Tuesday into Wednesday, even through the Ohio Valley. And then we turn our attention out across the Central Plains. By the time we get to the end of next week, another round, and then another one on Friday. So we're going to see several rounds of severe weather anywhere from the Central Plains through the Ohio Valley down to the Gulf Coast as we get into that week after Easter. So it's going to be very unsettled. A lot will change as we're now getting 8 to 10 days away from this current video. So we'll bring you the latest information as we know it here at the Weather Farm. But the ingredients are definitely there as we look at that temperature outlook, taking us from the 21st through the 27th of April. There, the eastern 2/3 of the United States, basically east of the Rockies, has a greater than normal chance of being above normal temperatures during this time period. The cooler weather is going to be confined to the Pacific Northwest, Montana, the Dakotas, as well as even the Southwest into Southern California and into the desert Southwest of Arizona. And why we see that pattern conducive for severe weather, thunderstorms, that's going to because the moisture is going to be available in this area. So we're going to see widespread area of above normal precipitation for the period from the 21st through the 27th of April. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this weather forecast here at the Weather Farm. Let us know what your thoughts are. Are you ready for more severe weather? Are you looking forward to the warmer temperatures? Go ahead and drop those things in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know how we can serve you better. We hope you have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you soon.